Good day, learners! Welcome to another episode of our learning journey in English 9. I am Ma'am Iris Pireda, your online English teacher. Are you familiar with this logo? Yes, you are correct. Bawal Judgmental. It's a segment from the noontime show Eat Bulaga. Today, you are going to play Bawal Judgmental. There will be 8 pictures on the screen and you will choose among them who do you think answers the question. Let's start. Who among them do you think are teachers? How did you make your choice? Sometimes, we tend to judge others without knowing the facts first. And there are also times that others judge us based on what they believe. However, we should remember the saying, "Don't judge the book by its cover." What does it mean? Yes, it means that we should not judge someone or something based on their physical appearance. Judgment needs to be made. The ability to evaluate and make choices help us to decide and understand what is right and what is wrong. In this episode, we will talk about bias and prejudice. Get your notebook now and let's start learning what are these. Our target most essential learning competency for this lesson is differentiate biases from prejudices. And in our session for today, you are expected to: number 1, differentiate bias from prejudice. Number 2, determine statements as bias or prejudice. And number 3, make realization about the effects of bias and prejudice in real-life situations. Others may say that bias and prejudice are the same because they are closely related, but there's a difference between them. Let's begin with discussing what is bias. Bias is one-sided perspective lacking a neutral viewpoint or not having an open mind resulting to unfairness. The keywords are one-sided and unfairness, not fair or favoritism. It also means to lean in a certain direction, either in favor of or against something or someone compared to another, usually in a way not considered fair. For example, an employer promoted a man over a more deserving female candidate. In this example, the employer is biased against women. He has not been fair in his choice since he is not in favor of women. Number 2, there was a heated argument between 2 students in class. The class president defended her best friend even though she's at fault. The class president is biased towards her best friend. She took her best friend's side even when she's wrong, so she is in favor of her best friend. After discussing what bias is, let's now proceed to prejudice. Prejudice, a preconceived opinion or feeling toward a person based solely on their affiliation with a group. without an actual experience or enough facts as basis. The keywords here are preconceived opinion or feeling based on affiliation without basis. This results to discrimination, therefore, prejudice is discrimination. An individual may be prejudiced against others based on factors such as race. The idea that groups of people exhibit different personality, characteristics, and can be separated based on their dominance of one race over another. Sex or gender. Prejudice based on sexual orientation or gender. Class status. This is a prejudice based on social class or grouping of individuals based on wealth, occupation, income, education, and social network. Age. Prejudicial attitude towards young people or older people. Religion. When treated differently because of religion or belief. Nationality. This is discrimination on national origin. Examples: I don't like blacks living in my neighborhood. This shows racism. Blacks are being discriminated because of their color. The citizens did not vote for a particular candidate who did not graduate from a high school because they think that the candidate is not capable of leading them due to limited educational attainment. This is prejudice based on class status. Not being able to finish education doesn't mean a person cannot lead. Let's now apply what you've learned today. Get your pen and notebook because it's time to do your learning task. Read and analyze the given situations. Identify whether it shows bias or prejudice. Write your answer in your notebook. Number 1. Juan Cruz cross-dresses as a woman whenever going out to a party with friends. A group of young men started shouting homophobic abuse at him while at the parking lot of a bar one Friday night. Juan was repeatedly punched and kicked, leaving him severely injured. Is this a bias or prejudice? You are correct. Prejudice. This is an act of discrimination on sexual orientation, LGBTQ. Number 2. Mrs. Cruz gave a quiz to her class yesterday and gave the answer key to her favorite student. Is this a bias or prejudice? Correct. Bias. Mrs. Cruz has favoritism. She is biased toward her favorite student. Mia rode a jeepney and discovered that her purse was lost. She assumed that the man in shabby clothes stole her purse. Is this a bias or prejudice? Good job! Prejudice. Mia assumed that the man stole her purse, although she has no proof. Number 4. A 67-year-old Filipino woman was found bleeding in front of her apartment on Friday, March 11, after sustaining at least 125 blows by a local in another anti-Asian hate crime in New York. Is this a bias or prejudice? Awesome! You got it correctly. Prejudice. This is an act of racism. Asian, especially Filipinos, are being discriminated in some parts of Western countries. Number 5. Death penalty is not the key in addressing the growing number of heinous crimes happening in the country. Is this a bias or prejudice? Very good. Bias. The writer is biased against death penalty, which means he or she is not in favor of it. Well done! You were able to identify bias and prejudice. Let's sum up our today's lesson. In your own words, differentiate bias from prejudice using this fishbone organizer. Now, let's see if we have the same answer. Awesome! You really did great in differentiating biases from prejudices. Knowing the difference between the two may be useful to validate what you have read or heard and to think carefully and objectively of an important issue before saying or writing down your opinion about the matter.
For your last activity, we are going to play quiz game.
Determine whether the line, statement, or situation is considered a form of bias or prejudice. People think that Alex cannot hold office because she came from the marginalized sector. Correct. Prejudice. James and Clarence committed the same violations. However, since James is the son of the mayor, Clarence is the only one who will be penalized. Correct. Bias. Some people are not served in a restaurant or retail store because of their skin color or race. Prejudice. That boy is a spoiled brat. Look at the way he talks. Prejudice. John's classmates are teasing him because his favorite color is pink. Prejudice. Before we end, let us reflect on what we have discussed for today. In your notebook, write your personal insights about the lesson using the prompts flashed on the screen. I hope that you are properly guided in this week's activities. Always remember, we humans have the tendency to have biases and prejudices. But always be mindful because it may cause discrimination to others. Once again, this is Mom Iris. See you next time. Happy learning!